Far to the north, after losing their allies in the cave of the Three-Eyed Raven, and being rescued and led away by Benjen Stark, Bran and Mira reached the wall, revealing their identities to Dolorous Ed of the Night's Watch, convincing him to let them through. Bran then traveled south, reaching Winterfell, where Sansa Stark was proving an able ruler. Although Sansa was happy to see her brother alive, he was now fully committed to his role as the Three-Eyed Raven, renouncing his claim as Lord of Winterfell. Serious and solemn, Bran no longer displayed emotion, explaining that as the new Three-Eyed Raven, he'd seen too much and had too many memories to act as the Bran they once knew. Soon they were joined in Winterfell by Arya, who was gifted a Valyrian steel dagger by Bran, using it as she showed off her skill, training with Brienne of Tarth in the castle courtyard. In the Godswood, Bran Stark skin changed into a group of ravens, watching as the army of the dead marched towards Eastwatch by the sea, then ordering Maester Wolkin to send ravens, warning of the approaching danger. One of these messages reached the king in the north, who learned that Arya and Bran were alive, and that the army of the dead was marching south. Despite the troubling news, Daenerys reiterated that she could not support his cause with Cersei Lannister in King's Landing, and so Tyrion suggested a plan. They must arrange a cessation of hostilities between Daenerys and Cersei so the entire realm can focus on the threat beyond the wall. In order to convince the Lannister queen, they must capture one of the undead soldiers in the army of the White Walkers and bring it south for all to see. In order to speak with Cersei, Davos would smuggle Tyrion into the capital, where a meeting could be arranged with his brother Jaime. Jaime Lannister, who was nearly killed by Drogon in the Second Field of Fire, hastily made his way back to King's Landing, informing Cersei of all he saw, and spoke of Tyrion's innocence regarding the death of Joffrey, revealing that Lady Olenna was behind the assassination. Jaime then met Tyrion in a secret encounter arranged through their mutual friend Bronn, where a possible truce was discussed. After the meeting, Jaime brought the information to Cersei, who was already aware of what had occurred, and allowed it because she thought it might serve her purpose to have a temporary agreement with the Dragon Queen. Cersei also revealed that she was pregnant, prepared to tell the whole world that Jaime was the father, no longer concerned about the opinions of others. When Tyrion returned to the boat, he found Davos accompanied by a young man named Gendry wielding a warhammer, the bastard son of King Robert Baratheon. Gendry later revealed his identity to Jon Snow, who welcomed him and allowed him to join their party headed north. Arriving at Eastwatch by the sea, Jon Snow gathered his companions, joined by Jorah Mormont, Gendry, and Tormund Giantsbane, as well as Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr, and Sandor Clegane, who'd traveled north following visions seen in flames, supposedly sent by their red god, the Lord of Light. Although many of the men had history and disliked each other, Jon decided they must work together. 6 others also joined them, and so Jon Snow, King in the North, marched beyond the wall alongside 12 companions, reminiscent of the story of the last hero who ventured north with a sword, a horse, and a dozen companions on a mission that would ultimately help save humanity and defeat the White Walkers. As they moved deeper into the frozen north, Jon spoke with Tormund Giantsbane, Jeor Mormont, and Beric Dondarrion, bonding with the men over shared experiences until reaching the mountain from the Hound's vision, which appeared to be the same location where the Children of the Forest originally created the White Walkers. As they got closer to the enemy, they were attacked by an undead bear with blue eyes, losing 3 of their companions in the fighting. Thoros of Myr was also badly injured, but able to continue. They then found what they were looking for, discovering a small group of whites being led by a single White Walker. Setting up an ambush, they attacked, and when Jon killed their leader, nearly all of the remaining whites were destroyed, leaving only one which was captured. Later, the men speculated that this meant the undead must be linked to the White Walker which created them. Yet the shrieks of this captured creature alerted the larger army nearby, and so Gendry was sent back to Eastwatch with orders to send a raven to Daenerys Targaryen. The other companions, meanwhile, fled for their lives, running across cracking ice, which broke under the weight of the pursuing army, losing yet another companion in the chase. Gendry, meanwhile, reached Eastwatch, relaying Jon's orders. After a night out in the cold, protected by the temporary moat which formed around them, the companions found Thoros did not survive, burning his body. After some time, the water protecting them froze once more, and the undead army attacked, losing 2 more companions in the fighting. With so many of them lost, the remaining men were completely surrounded when Daenerys arrived, raining dragon fire upon their enemies from all 3 of her children, wiping out large portions of the undead army. army. Jon Snow then continued fighting, while Beric, Jorah, Sandor, and Tormund climbed atop Drogon with their captive. However, as they prepared to leave, the Night King hurled a large ice javelin high into the air, striking the dragon Viserion and collapsing him to the ground, where he died. Although they managed to flee before another dragon was killed, Jon fell through the ice and was left behind. Escaping the water, Jon was then rescued by Benjen Stark, who stayed to fight off the enemy while his nephew escaped on his horse. Jon made it back to Eastwatch unconscious, and awoke to find Daenerys by his side. Determined to see the Night King defeated, she swore to fight the White Walkers alongside the North, and so Jon then declared he would bend the knee. In Winterfell, Littlefinger worked in the shadows to have Sansa and Arya argue and mistrust each other. Brienne of Tarth, who was sworn to keep the girls safe, was then sent away to King's Landing to represent the North in a meeting with Queen Cersei, and so the division between the Stark girls only grew deeper, with Sansa discovering Arya's faces and learning of her training as a faceless man in Braavos. At the Citadel, Sam continued to speak about the White Walkers, even interrupting a meeting of maesters who were discussing Bran Stark of Winterfell and his warnings of an undead army marching south. But all of Sam's arguments were met with skepticism, and he was left thoroughly unsatisfied by the Archmaester's tepid promise to investigate the matter. Unwilling to sit by and wait for the maesters to act, Sam stole a number of important books before packing up his family and leaving the Citadel, abandoning his duty to the maesters and heading for Winterfell to join Jon Snow as he prepared for the Great War. After returning from his mission beyond the Wall, Jon Snow joined the other rulers of Westeros in a meeting at King's Landing to discuss a possible truce in order to deal with the northern threat. Representing Queen Daenerys Targaryen was Tyrion Lannister, Missandei, Varys, Jorah Mormont, and Theon Greyjoy. Representing Jon Snow and the north was Brienne of Tarth, Davos Seaworth, and Sandor Clegane, and representing Queen Cersei and the Iron Throne was Jaime Lannister, Qyburn, Euron Greyjoy, and Gregor Clegane. Everyone was present at the meeting except for Daenerys, who arrived late, flying in on the back of Drogon. During the discussion, Jon Snow explained about the army of the dead, and the Hound brought out a crate, opening it to reveal the undead creatures captured beyond the wall. After charging in and nearly attacking Cersei, Jon used fire and dragon glass to kill the creature. Upon seeing the terrifying display, Euron Greyjoy announced he would withdraw from the current conflict, returning with his ships to the Iron Islands. Cersei called his departure cowardly before agreeing to the truce with the Dragon Queen on the condition that the King in the North declare his neutrality in the war for the Iron Throne, swearing not to take sides in any future conflicts. Jon, unwilling to lie, could not agree because he'd already pledged himself to Daenerys, and so the outraged queen ended the meeting, withdrawing her people from the Dragon Pit. It then fell to Tyrion to bring her back, traveling alone to meet with Queen Cersei in the Red Keep. Although the discussion was heated, she eventually agreed to the truce, promising to bring her forces north. However, she later explained to Jaime that she had no intention of upholding the agreement. Euron, she revealed, had not abandoned them, instead only feigning betrayal so he could sail his ships to Essos, where they would hire the Golden Company and bring 20,000 warriors across the Narrow Sea. Jaime was horrified by the plan, believing they must keep their word and help fight the true threat beyond the wall, and so abandoned the queen, leaving the capital and riding north as snow began to fall in the Crownlands. On Dragonstone, Jon Snow went over the plan to move their forces north, stating that the Dothraki could ride along the King's Road, while Jon and Daenerys took the Unsullied by ship to White Harbor, meeting the Dothraki on the main road as they traveled to Winterfell. With everyone preparing to depart, Theon confronted the last of the Ironborn, asking that they help him rescue Yara. Their leader refused, and so Theon fought and defeated his rival, taking leadership of the men, who then agreed to help rescue his sister. Aboard their ship, traveling north, Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen spent the night together. In Winterfell, Sansa received a letter from Jon stating that he bent the knee to Queen Daenerys and discussed it with Littlefinger, who continued his manipulations, trying to turn the Stark siblings against each other. Littlefinger, believing he had succeeded in his plan, was then present in the main hall when Arya was summoned to answer charges of treason, only to learn it was a trap, with the Stark siblings publicly accusing Lord Baelish of conspiring against Jon Arryn, murdering Lysa Arryn, and betraying Eddard Stark. Arya then slit his throat, leaving him to bleed out and die. Later, Sam arrived at Winterfell and was reunited with Bran. The two discussed Jon Snow and were able to piece together the truth of his origins, realizing that High Septon Maynard kept a private journal where he recorded that Prince Rhaegar Targaryen's marriage to Elia Martell was annulled, allowing him to marry Lyanna Stark in a secret ceremony. Lyanna then died, giving birth to a son in Dorne, who she named Aegon, asking her brother Ned Stark to promise he would protect the child from harm. To keep this promise, Lord Stark renamed the boy Jon Snow and raised him as his bastard son in Winterfell. Further north, at Eastwatch by the Sea, the army of the dead at last arrived, led by the Night King, mounted atop the dragon Viserion, who'd been brought back from the dead to fight for the White Walkers. The dragon attacked in a fury, breaking the wall with bright blue dragon fire. The attack was so quick and destructive, the wildlings and Night's Watch were left utterly defenseless, with the easternmost section of their mighty wall cracking and crashing down, leaving a large open space for the army of the dead to march south. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Harold the Lone Wolf, Master Hades of Skagos, and the Smiling Cow. If you'd like to help the channel with a monthly donation, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to see more.